The terminal buzzed. Voices layered over one another like static. Rolling suitcases hummed across tile. Announcements echoed overhead, bouncing off metal beams and tired eyes. It was 6:42 a.m. at LAX Gate 47, the early morning chaos of a delayed international. Flight Commander Naomi Fields stood silently near the boarding area. Dark gray hoodie, simple black leggings, braids tied back, no makeup, no jewelry, just a plain canvas backpack slung over one shoulder, and a stillness that said, "I know exactly who I am." She wasn't rushing. She never rushed. Not in airports, not in back alleys. Not when facing down suspects, and definitely not when people expected her to shrink. She glanced down at her phone. A text from her daughter lit up the screen. "Call me when you land, Mama. Love you." She smiled softly, typed back a quick heart. Emoji. Started to put her phone away, and that's when it happened. Move. A sharp, loud voice, female, white, mid-40s, clipped, cold, commanding. Naomi turned slowly. Behind her stood a woman in full pilot uniform, blonde bun pulled tight, blue suit pristine, captain's wings gleaming on her chest. Captain Elizabeth Ward. Her eyes burned with impatience. "I'm running late for this damn gate change," she snapped. "You need to step out of the way." Naomi didn't flinch, didn't raise her voice, just said calmly, "There's a better way to ask." Ward blinked, just once. Then, smack. She slapped. Naomi's phone clean out of her hand. It hit the floor with a hollow crack, skidded beneath the edge of the boarding counter, and in that moment, time stopped. A gasp rippled through the terminal. One traveler's coffee cup hit the floor. A child asked, "Why did she do that?" And the silence that followed. It was louder than the slap itself. Naomi bent down, picked up her phone. The screen wasn't cracked, but her face was, not physically, spiritually, because this wasn't just about a phone, or a flight, or a delay. This was about power, and who people think deserves to hold it. She stood up slowly, met the pilot's eyes. Ward took a step back now, only just realizing what she'd done. And Naomi, still calm, said, "You just put your hands on a police." "Commander." Another pause. Then, "And now?" "You've grounded yourself." She pulled a leather badge holder from inside her hoodie, flipped it open. The silver glint of the Oakland Police Department insignia gleamed beneath the terminal lights. Her photo. Her name, Commander Naomi L. Fields. A young gate agent's hand flew to her mouth. A man in line muttered, "Oh." "Sht." Captain Ward. Frozen. Her career flashing in front of her eyes. Security arrived 30 seconds later. Too late to stop what had already happened. Not the slap. The shift. Because in that moment, power had just changed hands. And the pilot, she didn't just strike a woman. She struck a legacy. And Naomi wasn't going to raise her voice. She was going to raise the standard. Before the terminal, before the slap, before her badge silenced the entire gate, Naomi Fields was just a little girl growing up on the south side of Atlanta. No uniform, no badge, just wide eyes, and a heart that knew when something wasn't right. Her father, Calvin Fields, was a mechanic, hard-working, quiet, wrongfully arrested at the age of 28 for a robbery he didn't commit. Naomi was 7 when she watched him get pinned to the pavement, in front of their house. No questions asked, no chance to speak, no apology given. He came home that night. But something in Naomi shifted forever. That day, she didn't just learn what fear felt like. She learned what injustice looked like. Up close. Her mother, Gloria, was a school teacher, strong, gentle, fiercely intelligent. She taught Naomi how to think, how to speak clearly, and how to hold her head high even when others tried to tilt it downward. "You don't wait for permission to be respected," her mother used to say. "You walk like you already are." Naomi was the kind of student teachers remembered. Not because she was loud, but because she was always watching. She listened when others talked over her. She took mental notes when systems broke down, and when she graduated high school at the top of her class, she skipped the party. She went straight into the academy. By 21, she was on patrol. By 26, she was leading investigations. By 30, she'd taken down a corruption ring inside her own department and lived to tell about it. No shortcuts, no favors, just facts. And fearlessness. She trained under the FBI, earned a master's in criminology while working double shifts, designed de-escalation programs used in 7 different states. And by 40, she made history. The first black woman ever appointed as chief of police in the city of Oakland. But Naomi didn't wear that title like a crown. She wore it like armor. She didn't lead with ego. She led with presence, the kind that filled a room without saying a word, the kind that demanded respect, not because of rank, but because of how she moved through the world. So that morning at Gate 47, she didn't need a badge to be powerful. She didn't need a uniform to deserve dignity. But when Captain Elizabeth Ward saw her, she didn't see the legacy. She didn't see the thousands of lives Naomi had protected. She didn't see the task forces, the keynote speeches, the handwritten letters from mothers whose children Naomi had helped bring home. She just saw a black woman in a hoodie, and that's why she snapped. That's why she slapped. Because power, when it's insecure, lashes out at anything it doesn't understand. Naomi didn't need to hit back. She'd spent her entire life learning how to win without swinging. Now, the world was about to learn who she really was. Not just a victim of bias, not just a badge, not just a woman in line, but the example of what happens when you carry your value quietly and let the truth make the noise. For you. Seconds after the slap, the air in Gate 47 turned electric. You could feel it. In the stillness, in the silence, in the way every pair of eyes in that terminal locked onto one woman and waited. Captain Elizabeth Ward stood frozen, hand clenched, at her side. Lips parted slightly. A flash of oh no on her face, like her body had reacted before her brain caught up. She looked around, as if realizing for the first time, people were watching, people were filming. And then, she saw the badge. Naomi held it open like a mirror, letting Ward see not just her title, but the weight of what she'd just done. 2 TSA agents jogged over, breathless. "Ma'am, we were told." Naomi didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. She simply turned toward them, still holding her badge, and said, "This pilot assaulted a federal officer." The words landed like bricks on concrete. The TSA guard straightened up immediately. We didn't know," one of them stammered. Naomi locked eyes with him. "That's the point," she said. "No one asked. You all just assumed." Ward tried to speak now. I didn't know who you were," she said, breathless. Her voice was shaky, less like authority, and more like panic trying to wear a uniform. Naomi turned back to her. "You thought I was a problem," she replied. "Now you're realizing I'm the protocol." A man stepped forward from the line, mid-50s, black, business class tag on his briefcase. He pointed at Ward. "I saw everything." She slapped the phone clean out of her hand. Another woman chimed in, holding her toddler, and she yelled first, loud. It was uncalled for. More voices followed, one by one. Ward looked around, realizing she was alone. Her status, her wings, useless. Now, because when truth enters the room, rank doesn't matter anymore. A supervisor from the airline arrived, clearly frazzled. He gave Naomi a forced corporate smile. "Commander Fields, we'd be happy to assist you privately. Perhaps in a more controlled setting." Naomi tilted her head. "You mean away from all these witnesses?" He hesitated. "I just meant," Naomi cut him off, softly. "You're not here to contain truth. You're here to respond to it." She looked him square in the eye. "So don't spin this. Record it." Security escorted Ward away. Not in handcuffs, but in humiliation. She didn't speak again, didn't make eye contact, because there's no script for when the one you tried to silence owns the room without saying another word. Naomi walked slowly to the gate desk, picked up her boarding pass. The young agent who handed it to her looked like she might cry. "Commander, I'm so sorry," she whispered. Naomi just nodded. "You don't have to say sorry for her. Just don't become her." The boarding call was made. Naomi didn't board first. She waited. Let others go. Not because she was afraid, but because she could afford to be still. She had already made more noise by standing quiet than anyone else could have made by shouting. And Gate 47 would never forget her name again. The flight to London never left that morning. Gate 47 was closed. The passengers were rebooked. The pilot was removed from duty. And the incident? No longer just an incident. By noon, someone had uploaded the footage. A shaky, vertical clip, shot from row 3 of the gate seating area. It started mid-sentence. She slapped her, for real, right in the face. Then came the gasp, then the slow turn. Then Naomi's badge, clear and undeniable. And finally, that one line. "You just put your hands on a police commander." The internet did the rest. Within 3 hours, the video hit 6 million views on Twitter. By dinner time, it had crossed over to Facebook, TikTok, YouTube Shorts. Hashtags began trending. Gate 47 slapped the chief. She didn't know, not in uniform, still in charge. People weren't just watching, they were feeling it. Because Naomi didn't just speak for herself. She became the face of something far bigger. Comment sections exploded. "That's my chief. She trained our department last year. She's the real deal." If she hadn't had that badge, the story would have been totally different. Black women deserve more than respect when they're in uniform. They deserve it when they're in line at a gate. News outlets caught on. CNN replayed the clip with the headline, "Pilot assaults passenger, unaware she's high-ranking law enforcement." NBC brought in a body language expert to analyze how calm Commander Fields remained under pressure. Local papers dug deeper. They pulled Naomi's public record. First black woman to lead Oakland PD speaker at 5 national leadership conferences. Architect of the California Bias Response Initiative. The airline tried to get ahead of it. A short tweet. "We are aware of the incident involving a member of our flight crew. We take this seriously. An internal review is underway." But Twitter wasn't having it. "Review what? We all saw the video. Try saying assault, not incident. Call her by her title, chief, not passenger." The pressure mounted, so the airline pulled the flight crew's name from the schedule entirely. Captain Elizabeth Ward was grounded, indefinitely. Meanwhile, Naomi, she said nothing. No tweets, no interviews, no press conference. She let the world speak. Let the silence say something back. She stayed home that night, made tea, listened to Coltrane, turned off every notification, because for once, she didn't have to raise her voice to be heard. She had already said enough, but outside, the noise was only getting louder, and people weren't asking if the pilot would be held accountable. They were asking, what if she hadn't been chief? What if no one had recorded it? What happens to every black woman without the badge? By the time the sun rose over California the next day, Naomi Fields had gone viral, but not as a celebrity, not as a victim, not even as a cop. She went viral as a mirror, and people were finally looking into it. By day 2, Naomi Fields was everywhere, her face on the morning news, her name in national headlines. Clips of her calm voice replayed over B-roll footage of Gate 47. But Naomi wasn't watching. She was working, not on a statement, not on a lawsuit. On something bigger. Major networks reached out. CNN, MSNBC, The View. Everyone wanted her on air. One sit-down, they promised. Tell your side of the story. But Naomi turned them all down. Not out of fear, out of focus. Because this wasn't about attention. It was about the message. And the message didn't need a spotlight to be heard. So when a small non-profit group, Women in Public Service, invited her to speak at a local community forum, she said yes. No cameras, no makeup team, just folding chairs in a city library basement and a crowd of about 50 women, some police, some teachers, some mothers, some survivors, and all of them watching her like she was more than viral, like she was proof. Naomi stood in front of them, no podium, just a mic on a shaky stand, and her voice. She didn't open with thanks, didn't list her accomplishments. She started with a question. How many of you have ever been disrespected? In silence. Hands rose, slowly, then more. How many of you have been dismissed until you flashed a title, or a badge, or a degree? More hands. One woman whispered, every day. Naomi nodded, then said, this isn't about what happened to me at Gate 47. It's about what happens to women like me, who don't wear a badge. What happens when we speak up, and no one's filming? The room was dead quiet. One woman in uniform wiped a tear. A young Latina near the back nodded, eyes closed, like the words hurt, but healed. Naomi continued. The pilot didn't slap me because she knew who I was. She slapped me because she assumed I was no one. And that assumption is where bias hides best. A few people started to clap. Not loud, but firm. Naomi held up a hand gently, not to stop them, but to finish what she needed to say. You don't need a title to deserve respect. You don't need a uniform to be protected. And you shouldn't need to go viral to be believed. This time the room stood up, all at once. The applause wasn't thunderous. It was deeper than that. It was grateful, because in a world full of echo chambers and noise, Naomi had brought something rarer: clarity. After the event, a woman approached her in the hallway, nurse, mid-30s, tired eyes. She said, I've been disrespected my whole career. But the way you stood there and didn't yell, didn't swing, just said what needed to be said. She paused. That gave me permission to stop apologizing for being present. Naomi smiled. That's all we've ever needed. Permission, not to shrink. And as she walked out of that basement into the cool evening air, away from the lights and the clicks and the tweets, Naomi felt something lift, not fame, not satisfaction, but alignment. Because this was the real work, and she was just getting started. The invitation came 2 days later, not from the pilot, not from the airport, from the airline's corporate office. An official-looking email, polite, carefully worded. We'd like to formally invite Commander Fields to a private reconciliation, meeting with Captain Elizabeth Ward. Our goal is to promote understanding, accountability, and healing. The tone, polished, but Naomi could smell the PR spin from a mile away. She didn't answer right away. She thought about it. Because forgiveness? That's not hard for her. She's seen worse. But performative apologies, those are harder to stomach than the slap. Still, she accepted the invitation, but on one condition: the cameras stay on. The room was modern, neutral colors, frosted. Glass walls, 2 chairs, 1 table, 2 bottles of water. The HR rep looked like he rehearsed every breath. The airline lawyer sat silently, tablet in hand. Captain Ward was already there. Her uniform gone, civilian clothes, eyes puffy, posture stiff, hands folded like a student facing the principal. Naomi walked in calmly. No entourage, just presence. She sat down, crossed one leg over the other, didn't speak, let them start. Ward cleared her throat. I'd like to start by saying I'm sorry, she said, eyes darting toward the HR rep. I was under a lot of stress that day. The flight was overbooked and I Reacted poorly. Naomi said nothing. Ward continued. Voice thinner. I didn't know who you were. And if I had known, Naomi raised one eyebrow. There it was, the line, the one Naomi had heard in different flavors her whole life. If I had known you were important. Naomi leaned forward slightly, eyes locked on Ward, and said slowly, If I had slapped you in uniform, where would I be sitting right now? Ward blinked. Didn't answer. Naomi didn't need her to. She turned to the HR rep. Then the lawyer. You brought me here for an apology, she said. You wanted a photo, a handshake, maybe even a press release. She leaned back. You don't want healing. You want a headline. The room went still. HR cleared his throat, nervously. Well, we believe in reconciliation, Naomi cut in. Then start by teaching your people that respect isn't based on rank. It's based on recognition of humanity. She stood, picked up her bag, paused at the door, and said, Tell your crew this. It wasn't the slap that caused the damage. It was the assumption that I was no one. She left. No handshake, no press photo, no forced forgiveness. And as she stepped out of the building into the daylight, she didn't feel victorious. She felt anchored. Because when you stop letting people define your worth, you stop asking them to restore it. The clip had stopped trending. The hashtags had cooled down. The public? On to the next outrage. But Naomi Fields? She wasn't done. Because justice doesn't end with a viral moment. It starts when the cameras are gone. 1 week after the apology, Naomi filed a formal complaint with the FAA, the Federal Aviation Administration. She didn't go through the airline. She went above them, straight to the top, with documentation. Video evidence, witness statements, and one question written boldly at the top of the file. How many others has she struck that weren't caught on camera? The FAA launched an official review of Captain Elizabeth Ward, and what they found wasn't surprising to Naomi, but it sure was to the public. 2 previous incidents, both involving physical outbursts, both filed by women of color, both resolved internally, both buried. One crew member had even been forced to sign a non-disclosure agreement to keep her job. Naomi read that sentence and whispered, This isn't an accident. This is a pattern. The news broke again, this time not as a trending video, but as a report. CNN headline, Pilot who slapped police commander, had prior complaints, never disciplined. The country took notice. Again. Naomi didn't do interviews. She wrote one op-ed, published in The Atlantic. No headline clickbait, just a clear title. When Power Protects Itself, a story about silence in uniform. In it, she wrote, What happened? To me at Gate 47 wasn't a failure of policy. It was the result of a system where uniforms excuse behavior instead of demanding better from it. It wasn't the first time. I just happened to be the first with a badge and a camera in the same moment. What we need now is reform, not remorse, the FAA responded. Captain Elizabeth Ward's license was suspended pending full investigation. The airline removed her from all duty rosters, and this time, they didn't say pending internal review. They said, We failed to act earlier. We are correcting that failure now. But Naomi didn't stop there. She partnered with a coalition of airline workers, civil rights groups, and former crew, whistleblowers. Together, they proposed a bill, Clear Standard, creating legal equity and reform in service training and non-discrimination regulations. A mouthful, yes, but it carried weight, because it would require mandatory bias training for all commercial flight personnel, transparent reporting channels outside of airline control, FAA oversight on passenger complaints involving physical or verbal abuse. Naomi didn't want to take someone down. She wanted to lift the standard up for everyone. Accountability, she said, isn't punishment. It's a mirror. Some people finally need to look into it. In a follow-up press briefing, an FAA rep was asked, Would you have investigated this seriously if Commander Fields wasn't who she is? He paused. Then, with uncomfortable honesty, said, Probably not. And that told the story better. than anything else could. By the end of the month, Captain Ward's license was officially revoked. The airline issued a formal apology, this time publicly by name. And Naomi? She didn't celebrate. She went back to work. Because justice isn't a finish line, it's a responsibility. Naomi didn't want revenge. She wanted systems to grow up, because it wasn't just about Captain Ward. It was about the other faces, the gate agent who looked the other way, the manager who offered excuses, the HR director who used internal language to bury complaints. This wasn't a single slap. It was a pattern with a uniform and a smile. And Naomi? She was done letting the sky hide it. So she started a new initiative. Not from a podium. Not from a press tour. From her office. Late nights, coffee rings, whiteboards filled with arrows and names, and one title in all caps, circled in red. Clear Skies, Equal Ground, a nationwide program. Built to train, educate, and reform. How airlines and all travel staff handle race, gender, power, and crisis. She gathered her people, a diverse team of experts. Former flight attendants, civil rights lawyers, airline security veterans, black female pilots who had been passed over for promotions, passengers who had spoken up but never been heard. She listened. She planned. Then she went to the airlines. Most expected pushback, but after the FAA fallout and public scrutiny, doors began to open. Naomi didn't walk in with threats. She walked in with solutions. She said, "You want passengers to feel safe. But safety doesn't start in the air. It starts at the gate. And respect? That should never require a badge." Within 6 months, 4 major airlines signed on. The program included real-time de-escalation training, bias recognition simulations, internal whistleblower protection, passenger feedback integration into crew evaluations, a new policy. Uniform is not immunity. In year 1, the Clear Skies program reached 38 airports, 12,000 plus airline staff, over 200 reported incidents reviewed with actual consequences. Naomi wasn't chasing viral. She was chasing velocity, not likes, legacy. One of the first Clear Skies sessions took place back at LAX. Yes.Gate 47, same spot, same hallway. But this time, Naomi wasn't standing alone. She was standing beside a black female captain and a white male gate agent who once stayed silent, now standing as a trainer. The screen behind them read, "This time we don't wait until someone gets hurt to ask what went wrong." After the session, a young trainee approached Naomi, fresh uniform, shaky voice, new badge. He said, "I used to be scared I'd say the wrong thing. Now I'm scared I'll stay quiet when someone else does." Naomi nodded. That was the whole point. Because reform isn't one speech or one scandal. It's thousands of small pivots in thousands of small rooms that slowly turn the whole ship, or in this case, the whole sky. It was a Thursday afternoon. Clear skies, no delays, no chaos. Naomi Fields walked through Terminal 5 at LAX with a quiet calm in her step. She wasn't in uniform, not speaking at a summit, not leading a reform session. She was headed to see her daughter on the East Coast, a mother, a traveler, just herself, and that was enough. She passed gate 45, then 46, then 47. The gate, the moment, the slap that had echoed beyond metal walls and tiled floors, and reverberated through a nation. She stopped for a moment, not to reflect, not to relive, but to witness something new. There, behind the check-in counter, stood a young black woman in a crisp airline blazer, hair braided into a crown, eyes sharp, poise unmistakable. She smiled warmly at an elderly couple, gently assisted a man who didn't speak English, handled a minor tech glitch with patience, not panic. She looked up, met Naomi's eyes, paused, then recognized her. Her smile grew a little wider, not out of fanfare, but acknowledgement, not of fame, but of foundation. A few seats down, a girl, maybe 10 or 11, sat beside her mom. She had a comic book in one hand, a carry-on with STEM camp stickers on the other. She nudged her mom gently, whispered, "Mom, that's her. That's the police lady." Her mom looked up, then smiled too. "You're right, baby." Naomi walked past them, but slowed just enough to hear the girl add, "I want to be like her." Naomi didn't turn around, didn't say thank you. She didn't need to. Because that sentence was the thank you. She arrived at her gate, a different one this time. An agent greeted her politely, treated her kindly. No second looks, no suspicion, no assumption, just service. Like anyone else, like she belonged, because she always had. The world had just needed time to catch up. She sat by the window, sipped her tea, watched the plane pull up to the gate, and for a moment she thought back to that day, not with anger, but with clarity. "Sometimes you break through by standing still," she whispered to herself. The boarding call echoed over. The speaker, Naomi stood, rolled her carry-on forward. She didn't look back at gate 47. She didn't need to, because this time, someone else was standing there, and they were ready too. The ballroom shimmered under soft amber lights. This wasn't a gala, not an award show, no red carpet, just a gathering of women, of leaders, of those who had risen quietly and finally been seen. Naomi Fields stood backstage. No badge tonight. No commander's uniform. Just a navy blue dress. Simple, elegant, strong. The MC read her introduction. She redefined what calm under pressure looks like. She reminded us that dignity doesn't ask for attention, it commands it. She stood at a gate and opened one for all of us. The crowd rose before she took a single step. Not for a celebrity, but for a woman who never needed the mic to be the loudest in the room. Naomi stepped onto the stage. She paused, not for drama, for weight, then spoke. "I never set out to go viral. I never planned to make headlines. I planned to board a plane. But sometimes, what was meant to be a trip becomes a turning point." She scanned the room. Some were in suits, some in uniforms, some still figuring out who they wanted to become. She smiled. That day at gate 47, I wasn't angry because someone slapped me. I was angry because they assumed I couldn't possibly be worth respecting. Because I wasn't dressed for power. Because I didn't look like the stereotype of who belongs where. A pause. Then, "But here's the truth. You don't need to wear a title to carry value. You don't need a badge to stand for something. And you never, ever need permission to take up space." The room was silent, not out of awe, but out of understanding. Because every woman there had been spoken over, overlooked, underestimated, and Naomi had given them the most radical gift of all, representation without apology. She closed with a final line. "So when the world questions why you're standing in line, remind it that you're not standing still. You're standing your ground, standing ovation, no theatrics, just truth meeting truth." After the event, a teenage girl approached, her too nervous to speak at first, then said, "I want to be a pilot one day. But I used to think I didn't look the part." Naomi smiled, kneeled slightly so they were eye to eye, then change what the part looks like. "Be so good," they stop asking. Years later, that same girl would earn her wings and, when asked at her graduation who inspired her to believe she belonged in the cockpit, she'd answer with just one name: Naomi Fields. Because Naomi's legacy was never just about justice. It was about reminding people they never needed to be small to feel safe. And sometimes, the loudest revolution happens quietly, at a gate, with a woman who didn't raise her voice. She raised the standard. The end.